So the African-derived concept Ubuntu, which I don't call it an African concept because it's not owned by Africa and it was never intended to be owned by Africans, because there's no sense, this sense of individual ownership is not, it would be against this very same principle. So it's an African-derived. It comes from Africa, but it's to the world. And then this whole African-derived concept of personhood becomes very critical as really a defiance or a defying definition of human in a modernity and humanist context. So we live in a world where modernity dominates. So we're going to talk about modernity. We're going to define that. We're going to introduce the students to this because it's important to realize that all the humanism and modernity and the influences of Western civilization really have a big impact on our perception of personhood, and so offer alternatives as Ubuntu is an alternative and see how, where that goes. And so we will be problematizing some of these things. We'll be conversing, having conversations around Ubuntu humanism, and then we'll move on to things like cosmopolitanism, and we will talk about classical cosmopolitanism, this idea of planetary conviviality being cosmopolitanism has been really catching up, and a lot of people talk about this. But there's a distinction in cosmopolitanism that I wish to make in this class, which would be the classical cosmopolitanism, which really is very much a modernity-infused perception of what that is, this planetary conviviality, versus versus a critical cosmopolitanism. So, and then I'll talk about I'll introduce something that I would call the Cosmo-uBuntu, which is really this other perception or other way of looking at this planetary conviviality if we're defining the human from the perspective of Ubuntu. So, yeah, this is very much what we are going to be doing. So understanding that these are foundational aspects, unless we have clarity on these perceptions of human, of personhood, there is no way we can have or start a conversation about racism or racial justice. So that's why I want to engage these particular paradigms first. Thank you.